What's goody, hey man? So today what we got for y'all, man, is a preview of both of these conference final series. One of them starts tomorrow, which is OKC Minnesota, and then starting on, I believe, Wednesday, or I would assume Wednesday, is Pacers Knicks, man. So let's go ahead, let's dive into it. First, we're going to dive into Wolves Thunder because that's the series that's starting first, and the Thunder just played last night, so it's more fresh in my mind. Not last night, it was in the middle of the day yesterday, actually, but it's more fresh in my mind. So I think the biggest thing going into this series, if you're somebody that's an OKC believer, is how massive, and I can't overstate really how big this is how massive the win over Denver was. Proving that you could beat Denver not only in blowout scenarios in game two and in game seven, but proving that you could beat Denver in clutch games like in game four and game six. Did they win game four? Yeah, because then they lost game five. I think they won game four. Because they lost game three, where Jokic had a really bad game, and then Jokic had another really bad game, and they won game four. Then they lost game five at home, and they won game six on the road. Or no. Did they win game four and game five? You know what? Let's just go back and look at it. But proving that they could win in both clutch scenarios and in both blowout scenarios against a team as good and as experienced as Denver, against a team with that type of championship caliber, that type of championship culture that we think about as Denver, that was really, really big. So they lost game six. That was the Julian Strother game. That's right. And then they won game five, which is a game where Jokic had a bad game and they ended up winning. And then they lost game four, I believe. No, they won game four. They won game four. Oh yeah, and then they lost game three, and that was the game where Shea took the shot right before the beginning of overtime, where I thought J Dub should have got it. Whatever. Okay, that's what happened. So, anyways, with them proving that they could win in both clutch scenarios, such as in Game Four, but then also proving that they could win in blowout scenarios, such as what they did in Game Two and in Game Seven, that's massive for OKC going into this because it shows you that okay, you can not only trust this team when there's a blowout, but you can also trust this team when they're going to have to hit big shots down the stretch, at least a little more than you believe that you could going into that series, or at least halfway through the series. That was a lot of people's biggest criticism of OKC, and they proved us wrong. So that's good for them. Um, but then I think, and for me, as at least as somebody looking at this series, the biggest thing for OKC here is their defense. That's the best thing they have going for them, and that's the biggest thing they have going for them, and that's the one thing that you believe you can trust, and that will always be there is that defense. You believe that that defense is going to travel well, it's going to carry well, no matter who they are playing, especially against a team like Minnesota, where Rudy Gobert you don't care too much about defensively. Mike Conley you don't care too much about defensively. So really, out of the starting lineup, it's like three guys, and then off the bench is where you start to get a little worried defensively because then it's like okay, they have some lineups, especially when Nas Reed is in, where you have to guard all five guys pretty much everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So that is really that is going to be a little scary for them, and we're going to talk about the differences in the bench depth and which bench I trust and everything like that in a second. But the yeah, the Thunder's defense is the best defense the Wolves have played. And the Thunder's defense is their best thing about their team. But at the same time, on the other side of the ball, I believe that this Wolves defense is the best defense the Thunder have played in the playoffs. They played Memphis's defense, which isn't bad or anything like that, led by a Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Jaren Jackson. But I do believe that that this Minnesota Timberwolves defense is better, especially because this team is fully healthy. And then that Nuggets defense is, even though it gave OKC trouble, which we'll talk about in a second, it's not. It was a bottom 20. It was a bottom 10 defense in the league for most of the season. So, and I think it ended the season as a bottom 10 defense in the league before the playoffs. So, like, it's not a great defense, even though they did play pretty well defensively in the playoffs versus both the Clippers and the Thunder, especially with that zone. I think that this Wolves defense is much better than that Denver defense. And the Wolves are also the much more well rested team. They packed up the Warriors in five. And yes, the Warriors couldn't win a game without Steph Curry. But no matter what, they packed up the Warriors in five. Whereas it took OKC 7 games. So they're going to be more well rested. And OKC just played on Sunday, playing again Tuesday. Whereas Minnesota hasn't played since what, Thursday? I don't think, maybe Friday. I mean, Thursday or Wednesday, I don't think, of last week. So they're going to be the way more well rested team. But another good thing for the Thunder is that coming off of that game seven, even though they only have a day off, they don't have to travel. So that's a good thing for them, is that like they do get a little more time to rest. Other than they get a little bit more time to rest, as opposed to what they would have gotten had the Wolves been getting game one and game two at home. So that's good for them. And now let's go ahead and let's get into a little more of the X's and O's things, and let's go into it a little bit more. Maybe not X's and O's as much, but like more of a thing where it's like, okay, player versus player, lineup versus lineup, who am I trusting, and everything like that. And I'm gonna tell you right now, top side, I trust Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle more in the playoffs than Shea and J Dub at this point. However, I do believe that J Dub is going to be the biggest X factor for the Thunder in this series. But listen, we've seen Anthony Edwards pack up LeBron and Luca. We've seen him pack up Kevin Durant, Booker, and Bradley Beal. We have seen him pack up Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets in a Game 7 in Denver. We've seen him do that. And while we have seen Shea this series that OKC is coming off of, the series against Denver is OKC's most impressive series with this core, with by like all stretch of the imagination. I just do believe that I trust Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, especially because of the way that Julius Randle has played during these playoffs, more than I trust more than I trust Shea and J-Dub, especially with the way that J-Dub only had 2 good games in the last series. Now, he had 2 good games in big moments where he has a good game and a game where Shea's performing terribly even though they lose, and then he has a good game in Game 7 and he is a catalyst to the whole run they went on in the second quarter and then the entire win as a whole. He had a great game. But I think that this team, when J-Dub plays the way he played in Game 4 and in Game 7, that is when this team is at their best. And they are so much harder to guard when J-Dub is playing well, is shooting the ball well, is getting to the cup, and is just playing well offensively. They are so much harder to guard because it makes you say, okay, even though we're probably, because I'm assuming that they're going to go into this doing a lot of the things that Denver did, where they're going to probably play some zone. They're going to throw bodies at Shea that make Shea give the ball up to other guys like Lou Dort, like J-Dub, like Chet, like Hartenstein, like Caruso when he's in, and blah, 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 whoever else. I believe that Minnesota is going to do that in a similar way that Denver did. But like when J-Dub is playing well, when you're doing that, it doesn't work as well. Because it's like, okay, he's passing it out to Chet. And if Chet and J-Dub are playing well, you trust them to hit shots. So it's like you don't get to just throw as many bodies at Shea and kind of focus in on him as much. You've got to worry about J-Dub, and especially when it makes OKC's offense a lot better also when Shea is off the floor. Because when Shea has been off the floor, other than in that Game 7 where Cason Wallace and Aaron Wiggins gave them huge minutes and Alex Caruso's been giving them huge minutes too, when Shea's off the floor, a lot of their offense gets worse. It's a lot of not good offense. Let's put it like that. Now, it's not as bad as when Jokic is off the floor for Denver. It's not as bad as when Steph Curry is off the floor for Golden State, but it does get noticeably worse. So if J-Dub is playing well, he helps alleviate a lot of that. So I do believe that the most important player going into this series that you want to watch out for is J-Dub. He is going to be the reason, well, not the full reason, but he is going to be a big reason whether OKC wins it, he's going to be a big reason why they win it. And if they lose it, he's going to be a big reason why they lose it, and I truly do believe that. I also trust Minnesota's role players more than I trust OKC's, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I would much rather have Dante DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and especially Naz Reid coming off the bench, especially as shooters and as offensive players and playmakers. I would much rather have them coming off my bench than Cason Wallace and Aaron Wiggins and Alex Caruso, where 2 of those guys are inconsistent players, and then they're also young players. And Alex Caruso, you know what he's going to give you defensively, but then there's like, you don't know if he's going to give you a 2 for 7 night from 3 or if he's going to be 3 for 5. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you trust the shooting, especially the shooting of Minnesota's bench way more than you do of OKC's bench. And even if we don't want to go to the bench, if we go starting 5, I trust Jaden McDaniels more than I trust Lou Dort offensively. I trust Julius Randle based off of what he's done in these playoffs offensively, especially in bigger moments, especially when it comes to playmaking, than I do with Chet Holmgren. I trust Isaiah Hartenstein more than Rudy Gobert offensively, because Rudy Gobert is one of the most useless players offensively in the game of basketball, because he can't even catch the ball. Like, it's insane. But and I trust like Mike Conley. I don't trust Mike Conley. So I guess if you go to OKC starting 5, I don't trust Lou Dort, and I don't trust well, I guess in their starting 5 I really only don't trust Lou Dort, I guess. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't trust J-Dub, but it just really depends on how J-Dub plays this series. But it's like, on one side of the ball, you don't trust Lou Dort, where it's like, you don't trust Mike Conley to guard anybody for Minnesota, but you trust him offensively. If he can find a way to just play make for you, if he can find a way to facilitate, if he can find a way to slow the game down, or you take him out if you need the game to speed up. Either way, I think Minnesota has more lineups for a variation of different things, especially when it comes to those lineups playing well on both sides of the ball. Whereas OKC has defensive lineups that will dominate you, but when those same defensive lineups are in, a lot of the time the offense is ass. So it's like, it's tough. You know what I'm saying? And I am interested to see what Mark Daigneault is gonna do when it comes to like Lou Dort versus Alex Caruso, because something we saw towards the end of the series against Denver was Alex Caruso was getting a lot of those Lou Dort minutes, where Alex Caruso was playing more minutes than Lou Dort for the last couple of games. And I think it really does depend on how Lou Dort is shooting the ball, and also if Lou Dort's in foul trouble. I think it depends on both of those things, but like, I am interested to see, like, do they have games where they start Caruso if Lu Dort's not playing well, or like do they just go to that because they say it's the Western Conference Finals? I don't care if you started all season. If you're playing ass, you're playing ass. I am interested to see what that happens. I mean, what happens there if Lu Dort ends up playing bad offensively, which is something that we're only going to see once the series start. We won't know if this is even going to be a conversation until we see how Lu Dort plays on both sides of the ball. Or offensively, I'm sorry. Jaden McDaniels, for me, for the Wolves, I think he is going to be the X Factor player because I think it's between him and Julius Randle, and here's why I'll tell you a case for both players. Jaden McDaniels will have to play well on both sides of the ball, and this is because Anthony Edwards will most likely get the Lu Dort assignment for majority, if not, he will be guarded by probably Lu Dort and Alex Caruso for the majority, if not all of this series. He's going to get their two best defenders. So that means that Jaden McDaniels is going to have a J-Dub on him or a Shea, probably J-Dub, not Shea. So you're going to probably have a J-Dub on him or whatever, right? That's fine. So you need him to go ahead and you need him to cook J-Dub in at least a few of these games. And then also on the other side of the ball, he's probably going to get the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander assignment. Because you're probably going to put Anthony Edwards on, well, it depends actually. Because it's like, if you start Mike Conley, and this is something I'm interested to see what Chris Finch is going to do, because it's like if you start Mike Conley, you have to put him on Lu Dort because you don't trust him on Shea. You damn sure aren't putting him on Shea or J-Dub. So you got to put him on Lu Dort. So then it's like you're going to put Ants on J-Dub, and you're going to put are you going to put Jaden McDaniels on Shea? That's what I'm assuming they're doing. So I'm assuming Jaden McDaniels is going to get the Shea assignment while also getting guarded by Shea or J-Dub on the other end. That's going to mean that he is going to have to play well on both sides of the ball because he's not going to have the leeway to play not great offensively, because if he plays not great offensively, that allows for Shea or J-Dub, whoever's going to be on him, to rest. And if you start Mike Conley, you're probably going to put Shea on Mike Conley so that way he can rest more. So you're probably going to put J-Dub on Jaden McDaniels. So if Mike Conley starts, I'm assuming Jaden McDaniels will be guarding Shea and will be guarded by J-Dub. So I think Jaden McDaniels has to play a really big part in this series for that reason. But then I also am interested to see what they do with Julius Randle. Because if you want to rest Shea and you don't want him to have to guard anybody crazy, it's like, okay, that's whatever. I get that. You put him on Mike Conley. But then it's like, well, you're going to have J-Dub probably on Jaden McDaniels, and who guards Julius Randle? Do you trust Chet to guard Julius Randle, even if Julius Randle's maybe a little bit of a faster player? I would say he's probably that. He's probably the stronger player. I would say he's probably that, and he's also going to play off the perimeter a lot more because he's going to be doing a lot of playmaking, if I had to guess. So it's going to take Chet out of that role where he's roaming defensively. So I'm interested to see what they do there because I think you have to put Isaiah Hartenstein and Rudy Gobert. So I think the only reason that I'm saying Julius Randle might be the X factor in this series is because I think it might be very awkward for OKC to guard him, to guard lineups where you have Naz Reid on the court at the same time as him and Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels. If you have a lineup with those four guys on the court at the same time, and then let's say Dante DiVincenzo or Nickeil Alexander-Walker, it gets a little tougher for OKC to guard, and it gets a little easier for you to guard OKC. I believe. So I believe that's the type of lineup that will have to play a lot of minutes in this series, and I believe that's the type of lineup that will have to be very effective in this series in the minutes that lineup gets together in order for them to play well. And I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't even be shocked if we don't see many Hartenstein or Gobert minutes from either side. Throughout the first, maybe throughout some point of the series, whether it be towards the end of the series, towards the beginning, because I just think when Naz Reid is in the game, it makes Minnesota so much harder to guard, especially when he's hitting shots. So I do believe that Naz Reid will be a key player here, but I believe that whole lineup, where that lineup will probably be in for a good majority of these games, I believe that lineup will have to play very, very well. Wow, I've been talking for 13 minutes just about this series. I'm not even done yet. And then another X factor for this series to me is, will either Mike Conley or Isaiah Joe be able to play here? Because it's like you don't trust either one of them defensively. They're both small. They both give you some things, even though it's different things. They both give you some things offensively, but it's like, are those things offensively enough for you to warrant playing them for more than like 10 to 15 minutes a game? I don't think so, especially not with Isaiah Joe. Now with Mike Conley, he's a starter, so it's a little different. I do think he will get minutes no matter what. But like against the Lakers, he was barely getting minutes. So I wouldn't be shocked if it's a similar thing here, especially because Shea is a bigger guard. So I wouldn't be shocked here. And especially if Alex Caruso's hitting shots, if you get games where Alex Caruso or Lu Dort are hitting shots with Mike Conley on them, you got to take him out. I'm not gonna lie, you got to. So it's interesting to see if him or Isaiah Joe will be able to play here. And for Isaiah Joe, I think OKC might need him to play, especially in moments when their offense isn't great, because he just adds so much shooting to that team. Like, you have to guard him no matter where he is in the half court because you trust that he can shoot the ball from anywhere. Even he's not Steph Curry. I'm not trying to glaze, but he's a sniper. That's what his whole role is. So OKC will probably need him at some point in this series, and I'm interested to see what those minutes of him and Mike Conley look like, depending on what minutes either one of those players gets. Thing here, I think Chris Finch is a better coach than Mark Daigneault. I do. I don't believe it's like a big gap, but I do believe that Chris Finch is a better coach than him. So I am interested to see like what type of adjustments Chris Finch makes and what type of things Chris Finch is able to do in game one. And I do believe that Minnesota will come out hot in game one because Chris Finch and the Minnesota Timberwolves, since they finished their series early, they've been able to really key in on what OKC has been doing in real time, both in real time versus Denver, and now that the series is over after the Denver series, where it's like they're going into this series already having thought about some OKC things before the series even ended, whereas OKC probably wasn't thinking about them until after the Denver series ended, because you can't think about Minnesota when you have a 7-game series against Denver still on your hands. So Minnesota, I believe in game one, will be more prepared than OKC, and I also believe that Chris Finch is the better coach overall, so I believe that throughout the series, his adjustments will be something that will be pivotal for Minnesota if they want to win this series. Obviously, OKC has the better tools to blow out Minnesota than Minnesota has to blow out OKC, but I think Minnesota is a harder team to blow out than a team like Denver because of how much better the Wolves are defensively. Where it's like, obviously, Denver has the best player. They have Nikola Jokic, but like, their defense is so much worse that if you get going offensively, you believe that you can get up by 20 and stay up by 20 because their defense isn't good enough to stop you consistently when you're already hot, when you already have the momentum, especially at home. Minnesota's defense is good enough to both. Minnesota's a team that's good enough to both get stops defensively and score on the other end of the ball, especially if it's in the fourth quarter where Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle are hot. I don't believe that there will be any crazy comebacks in this thing. I'm not predicting that or anything like that in the series. But what I am saying is it will be harder for OKC to blow out Minnesota than it was for them to blow out Denver, I believe. With all that being said, I think this series will be better than Pacers-Knicks, which I'm about to talk about in a second in terms of clutch games. I believe this series will have more clutch games, even though I believe this series will end faster than that Pacers series. So give me Wolves in 6 here, man. I believe in the Wolves. I believe in Anthony Edwards in the clutch. I believe in Julius Randle's playmaking to make things difficult on OKC's defense, and I believe that Minnesota has the better role players both in the starting five and off the bench offensively that will make life harder on OKC. I believe Minnesota can make life harder on OKC than OKC can make life harder on Minnesota. That's what I believe. I don't know if I said that right or anything. But now on to Pacers-Knicks. Four of the best playoff shooters. I believe this is the stat. I hope I'm not misconstruing this stat. 4 of the best playoff shooters this year are on the Pacers. The big question here is the big question that I had for the Cavaliers all season. Will that shooting regress? Because if it does, the Pacers offense gets a lot less lethal. Now, the Pacers have maybe the most lethal offense in the NBA where it's like 3 minutes will go by and you'll see this team just bucket straight. They scored 20 points on a 20-0 run and you don't even think their defense is like that. But they're on a 20-0 run somehow. That's what this Pacers team does. And the Pacers have much better depth. But at the same time, it's like if the shooting is going down, then that depth doesn't matter as much because it's like that depth is replacing guys who are not giving you what they have been giving you throughout the playoffs. So it's like, will that depth even matter that much, especially when you consider that the Knicks have been worse in terms of depth in every single series in the playoffs so far and pretty much for the entire regular season as well. So how much do you really think the depth is going to matter considering the fact that the Knicks haven't had good depth the entire year and they're still in the conference finals? But then you ask something for the Knicks where you say the Knicks have been able to rely on clutch games for both throughout the regular season, which is why Jalen Brunson won Clutch Player of the Year. And then you get through Detroit and you see Detroit making good runs and everything like that. But then in the clutch, it's Jalen Brunson and the Knicks taking over. And then against the Celtics where you see New York go down by 20 twice in the first 2 games. And then in the clutch, they come back, they win the game. So the question here for me is, will the New York Knicks be able to rely on clutch games? Because if they can, I believe that everybody would pick New York if they believe that the Knicks can rely on clutch games. But the problem with that is the Pacers offense is so good that if the Knicks cannot turn it up offensively before the fourth quarter and the Pacers are able to go on one of those runs, the Knicks might find themselves down 20 in any given game. Because the Pacers offense is so good and their defense is also just so solid that they can go on a 20-0 run in the blink of an eye, and New York, who's a team that hasn't been able to turn it up offensively, or that has shown that they don't care about turning it up offensively until the second half of the game, if not the second half, then just the fourth quarter by itself. I don't know if you can do that versus the Pacers, but the one thing saving you, there's two things that I think really save you in this series if you're New York, and that's the reason I am backing New York in this series. Spoiler alert. If you were able to come back down 20 against Boston, I believe that you could come back down 20 against Indiana. And then second of all, there is nobody on the Indiana Pacers individually that is as hard to guard as Jason Tatum, as Cade Cunningham, or anything like that. Now, don't get me wrong. As a team, they are the much more well-rounded team out of any of those teams, more than likely, especially with Boston being hurt, with Kristaps being out, and Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles, and guys missing time, Jrue Holiday missing some time, and Jrue Holiday just not giving them much anyway. So both of these teams fully healthy, right? I trust Brunson and Cat with someone like Nembhard guarding him, with someone like Nembhard maybe on Brunson, or someone like Nesmith on Brunson. I trust Brunson to score there more, especially in the clutch. Or I trust Cat with someone like Siakam or Miles Turner on him to score more than I trust Tyrese Halliburton to score with Mikal Bridges on him. Or Siakam with OG on him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I trust, and I do think Mitchell Robinson will play a huge role in this series, because I think at a certain point you might have to see what the double big lineup is looking like, especially if Tyrese Halliburton starts frying Mikal Bridges, or if Nesmith starts frying Jalen Brunson or whatever, because Jalen Brunson is somebody that is a cone defensively. So Jalen Brunson is somebody that the Pacers will be able to attack defensively, and with Nembhard being such a key player for Indiana, there's games where Nembhard will go 4 for 5 from 3 and 7 for 9 from the field, but then there's other games where Nembhard will take 3 shots, or he'll miss every shot he takes, even if he takes 11 of them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, the Nembhard games will be key, because, I mean, not Nembhard, Nesmith. The Nesmith games will be key, because if you have nights where Jalen Brunson cannot hide defensively at all, and Tyrese Halliburton's having good success against Mikal, you won't care as much about Pascal not being able to score on OG or on Cat or on whoever's on him. You won't care as much, because you'll have your backcourt, and then add Nesmith or Benedict Mathurin, they'll be able to score. And I think Benedict Mathurin off the bench is going to be key, because it's like, well, you don't trust anybody on New York's bench, really, especially to guard them. So it's like, Deuce McBride coming off the bench ain't guarding nobody. So, I mean, I guess you could put him on TJ McConnell, because you're not super worried about TJ McConnell. But he comes off the bench and doesn't really guard anybody too well. Mitchell Robinson come off the bench, and as a big man, he'll be able to match the Thomas Bryant minutes or whatever really well, and he'll be able to get some minutes in on Miles Turner as well. But it's like, off the bench, who else do they got? Campaign. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, Pacers have the much more depth, please don't get me wrong, but then it's like, at the same time, I trust Josh Hart to guard. Maybe he's probably going to get, I don't know. Maybe he gets the Nembhard assignment. I feel pretty good about that. Mikal Bridges gets the Tyrese Halliburton assignment. I feel okay about that. OG gets the Pascal Siakam assignment. I feel good about that. Or whatever Tom Thibodeau or whatever Tom Thibodeau does in this series, I feel more confident defensively about New York than I feel about Indiana. And then at the same time, I trust Brunson and Cat more than anybody on the Pacers. And maybe that's delusional, maybe it's not, but especially Brunson, I trust him more than anybody on the Pacers, especially when it comes down to clutch games. So, because of that, and because of the fact that I watched this New York team come back in back-to-back games in Boston, down 20, to beat Boston, I can't say that they couldn't do that against the Pacers. I can't. I just watched them do it in back-to-back games against Boston in Boston. So I can't say, oh, just because blah, 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 but Indiana might get up 20, they might win it, blah, 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 blah. Indiana has a very good chance to win this series. I think it's pretty much 50-50. But I'm going to go with New York in 7, because I trust Brunson and Cat more. Because I trust New York defensively more. Because also I want to see Minnesota versus New York in the finals. I want to see these two teams made a blockbuster trade with each other right before the season started, a few weeks before the season started. Now they're going to get each other in the finals in that very same year. Let's see who won the trade right now. Like, I really love that storyline, and I really want that to happen. So because of that, I am going to say it will be the Pacers losing in 7 to the Knicks, and I'm going to say it will be the OKC Thunder losing in 6 to the Wolves. These are two series that I think are both toss-ups, 50-50. Like, these are two of the hardest series to pick of the entire playoffs. Because of that, I am I'm reserving the right to be extremely wrong about anything I just said in this entire video. So y'all let me know what y'all think about everything I said. Y'all let me know what y'all think is going to happen in this series. Let me know if y'all think I'm bugging. Let me know if y'all think I'm missing something. Let me know if y'all think I'm misanalyzing these teams completely. And let me know who y'all think is going to win. All right? I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching, man. All glory to God as always. And tell your friend to tell a friend if you like the content. And also if you want to see, tell me if you have any other specific content that you want to see, especially in the offseason. Let me know what you want, man, because season's almost over. We got a few weeks left of basketball and then it's wraps. So let me know what y'all want to see. All right? Peace out.